What's up everyone, Vu of Envu Films, and I am back with another idiotic video for you to watch. Today, I want to talk about the new Canon EOS R5 information that was recently released yesterday, April 20th. And why am I talking about the Canon EOS R when I am clearly a Sony D-bag tube douche fanboy? Well, right now, other than COVID, the only other thing that's itching everyone's throats is the massive Canon EOS R5 mushroom tip. All YouTubers yesterday and probably today, every time I scroll through my YouTube feed, all I see is a bunch of YouTubers just choking on that massive Canon EOS R5 roderation, and deservedly so. I mean, you look at the specs and you see, hey, 4K up to 120 frames per second, full frame, no crop, internal recording, 8K up to 30p, raw, all kinds of crazy specs that most Sony fanboys would have thought that Sony would have released a Sony a7SIII 2-3 years ago with those specs, but we're still here in this 4K 30p 8-bit action. So what does this mean? Am I impressed by Canon? Yes, I am very impressed. As you can see, a lot of my most recent videos, I haven't said one negative thing about Canon because there's really not much negative I can say about what they're doing. The Canon 1DX Mark III, amazing camera that they've developed there. EOS R5 development news, EOS R6. A lot of the things Canon is doing is top notch. I cannot call them trash anymore. But at the same time, I am not deep throating them either. The only thing that is getting deep anything right now is Sony, okay? DP no longer stands for dual pixel. It means deep penetration, Sony headquarters right now. Canon is deeply penetrating Sony, and it's not even close. These specs are beyond what any Sony user would have wanted out of a Sony a7SIII, like way beyond. Like if the Sony a7SIII was supposed to be beyond our expectations, the Canon EOS R5 is even beyond that. Like, I don't even want 8K. Do I even need 8K? No. Do I want 8K? No. Do I want to pay for 8K camera? No. Do I want to pay for 8K camera storage? No, I do not. I really don't even care much for RAW. I just wanted 4K 10-bit. I wanted 4K 60 10-bit on a full frame sensor, no crop, with autofocus intact. That's literally all I want. Canon EOS R5 is delivering that and RAW and all this other crap. And we could go here and nitpick their little minor specs here and there, like, oh, is it going to have audio in 120 frames per second 4K? What kind of 4K is it going to be? Because it is an 8K sensor that produces full frame 8K, which means when it does 4K, what is that 4K? Is it 8K downsampled? Is it 6K downsampled? Is it pixel binning like the a7R3? I believe the R5 is like a 40 something megapixel camera, which means the pixels on this full frame sensor will be a lot smaller, which means the light sensitivity and all that stuff is not gonna be as great. So what is a high ISO performance like? All these things. But I think the most important part for me is what is the cost gonna be. Right now, the 1DX Mark III, which is, I guess, Canon's top of the line DSLR, it's like $5,000-6,000. I can't imagine the EOS R5 being cheaper than that. Like if it was $3,000, no one would even buy the 1DX Mark III other than, sports photographers, because that thing is a very fast photography camera as well. The 1DX Mark III is. So, I mean, if it's $5,000-6,000, you can't just look at that cost and be like, okay, that's how much it costs. Because if you're buying this camera for the full 8K, 4K, 120 frames per second raw recording, if you're spending the money on it, if it is going to be $5,000-$6,000, which I think it probably will, just because Canon is not going to be undercutting their C300 Mark II and their 1DX Mark III like that. I think Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com, apparently I don't think he knows his prices that well, because he's thinking this camera is going to be $3,500. I highly doubt it. Not with those specs. And of course, if you're going to buy this camera at $5,000, $6,000, you're going to want to use it for that full $5,000, $6,000, which you're going to probably want to use the 8K. You probably want to use the 4K RAW, or else why are you paying the premium for? So when you do that, you're going to also have to buy a better computer, because your computer right now, if you've been shooting Sony or Canon EOS R1080 90 megabits per second, you're gonna need to upgrade your computer to be able to edit this footage, right? So you're gonna have to spend, if you want a laptop, you're gonna spend $3,500 to $4,000 to have a laptop strong enough to be able to handle that kind of footage and file sizes. And then, or you're gonna have to upgrade your computer, which would be cheaper, like a PC or MacBook, whatever. But Macs are gonna be, $4,000, and you rebuild, build your own PC is gonna be maybe $2,000 or so. So you're gonna have to spend that money, and on top of that, you're gonna spend more money on hard drives to store all of that file backup, as well as a whole crap ton of very expensive $200, $300, $400 2TB SSDs just to save your editing footage or just to record your footage to. CF Express cards, all that stuff comes into play into the cost. So you're looking at probably investing $10,000 at least just to buy the Canon EOS R5 body and to use it. But you don't even have lenses yet. But if you already have Canon lenses, that's whatever. But just to get a EOS R5 body and to be able to use it to its price point, right? You're gonna have to spend at least 10 grand just for the camera body and whatever other crap you need to be able to edit footage consistently and use the camera. So that is where Sony kind of has an advantage, other than the fact that right now, I'm sad to say that there's COVID going on, and with this whole COVID situation, Canon has to slow down its production. Obviously they can't produce as fast, R&D, what have you. So it kind of gives Sony some time to obviously work behind the scenes on whatever camera they're trying to work on. 4K 60, 4K 120 frames per second, 10-bit. That's all we need, right? Sony could just work on whatever it is they have to do. And then, later on this year, hopefully they make an announcement and all are happy. And they don't even have to match the EOS R5 spec sheet. They don't need 8K, 6K will be a plus, but I don't even need 6K. All I really want is 4K 60, 4K 120 frames per second, 10-bit internal on the full frame sensor. That is it. That is really all the specs I really need to work with what I do. And honestly, I think majority of people on YouTube, majority of people who do commercial work, run and gun wedding films like myself, that's all really need. And with that, if you limit it to just, hey, 4K 120, 10-bit internal, maybe if you want to throw in 6K in there that we may or may not even need, you could keep the price down at a competitive level, like maybe between $3,000 and $4,000, and you'll be good to go. You don't need to chase 8K and try to match Canon specs and have to charge everybody 6K for the body, and no one's gonna want to buy it because a lot of people aren't even gonna use those like extra specs that make it cost that much to begin with. And another thing Sony could work on is something that I believe they're very good at, is small file sizes with very high quality. Sony has the best 8-bit in the market, the best 8-bit 1080, the best 8-bit 4K 100 megabit per second files. I know some Canon users gonna complain about what I'm saying here and not agree with me, but hey, you know, you're wrong. And you know, you go ahead and go protest that COVID is fake outside with your mask on. You go ahead and do that. So yeah, if Sony can just produce their new Kodak that could do 4K 60 120 10-bit at a reasonable file size, you know, 200 megabits per second, 400 megabits per second, clean, good dynamic range that they're known for with their current 8-bit trash files, then I think most of us would be happy to spend $3,000-$4,000 on this new A7R or A7 IV or A7S III, whatever they want to call this new camera. But yes, you have time, and this is by no means me trashing Canon at all. I think what they're doing is awesome. I think they're pushing the industry. I think they are giving most people exactly what they want. I'm not sure if the price is going to be what people want, but definitely the specs are all there. And Sony and these other manufacturers have their work cut out for them. Nikon is done. No one wants to mess with that. Fuji is still in the game because they do have very good 4K 60 and all that stuff, a good autofocus and reasonable pricing. Cameras under $2,000. Panasonic, I mean, gosh, my brain on Panasonic is like they're autofocused right now. I can't even focus on what to say about Panasonic. Just like their autofocus is horrible. Can't focus on anything. So Panasonic is still trash, but Sony, they just have to deliver probably like 75% of what the EOS R5 is in terms of video specs, and they'll be good. They'll be good to go. I think if there's one thing Canon did wrong is probably just put way too many unneeded specs in there for the common man, that it's gonna be so expensive to play around with that people might not even buy it. Or maybe Canon fanboys will buy it, but I don't think a lot of Sony users is going to jump ship that fast. Even the Sony users I see on Facebook right now completely just having that mushroom tip of Canon all up in their esophagus, I think they're going to look at it and be like, hold on, this is going to cost me a lot of money. I'm going to have to slow my roll in terms of switching bodies and stuff like that. So anyways, guys, that is my thoughts on it. If you kind of like what I just said here, please like and subscribe. It helped me very much right now, as I am a filmmaker and I do a lot of weddings, and most of the weddings are rescheduled, so I won't be getting a good amount of income this year for 2020. So just subscribing and just once in a while just watching one of my videos helps so much, guys, and I really appreciate it. Thank you for watching, and until next time, lighten up. Peace.